Welcome to the Alternative Leader podcast. My name is Mary Williams and I'm the Mind Architect. I'm also founder of the Alternative Leader Academy and author of It Begins With You. This podcast is dedicated to inspiring the leaders of today to lead with intention, both in their personal and their professional lives. My guests from across the world share their challenges, their knowledge and their experiences so that we can learn from these powerful insights to help us lead with strength, determination and compassion. Today's guest is Lisa Sibley. Lisa is a leading breath worker known for her innovative approach to conscious breathing and holistic wellness. Lisa combines various breathwork techniques, drawing from ancient practices and modern therapeutic methods. She creates transformative experiences for her clients, which I can verify for. She emphasizes the mind-body connection, helping clients explore emotional healing, stress reduction, and personal empowerment. She runs workshops and training programs across the world, and her work has significantly contributed to the global breathwork movement. And Lisa works corporately with teams, with individuals, and obviously with private clients. And I can absolutely say that for me personally, learning to breathe more easily was transformative in both my life, but also in my business. So Lisa, thank you very much for coming onto my podcast. I really appreciate you giving up your time and your energy
to
do it and to talk to us about breathwork. Tell me, so obviously you had this challenge in life, you were saying, where you had ADHD. You've just recently found out in a diagnosis, but you never knew that before. So where do you think that first showed up for you, even if you weren't aware of it at the time?
Thanks, Mary. Well, it's an interesting thing because I find myself in my early 50s, early to mid 50s, finding out, well, the realization that it is ADHD. But basically, I lived with it my whole life. So when I was younger, it was this kind of disorganized, never managing to do things on time, really struggling with things that seemed quite easy for my friends and people around me, my family members as well. So obviously I had lots of strategies over the years and but it still was quite a struggle, actually. It didn't seem to shift at any point. It didn't matter whatever I did. It didn't seem to shift these things I was having problems with. And as well as kind of like the practical things in life, there was also quite a lot of mental, emotional things that kept reoccurring. And one of them was actually my own kind of relationship with myself, which was very much sort of putting myself down, especially when these things kept happening. And I think, what's wrong with you? And had a lot of negative self-talk, pretty negative relationship with myself in many ways, even though outwardly you wouldn't have been able to tell that at all, probably. Inwardly, it wasn't a good relationship.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that's just such a common story. Such a common story for people who've had, any sort of neurodiversity, really, because they have that kind of sense of I am different. And I can't kind of be the person that I feel I can be in my head. I used to feel that like I could sense that I could have achieved so much. I didn't feel that I did. So it's really interesting, isn't it, how common that is, especially in business owners as well, I think.
Well, what's really interesting, I think, sort of, that element of running my own business and that part of me, that kind of, I can get an enormous amount of things done. So when I'm on it, it's just incredible what I can do, and people do remark on that, and I can tell, So in many ways, it's been really positive. But of course, what's really helped me is realizing, okay, if I look at what shows up, what is ADHD, and I look at some of the things I've struggled with, it's like, okay, okay, I get it now. It's really been quite beyond my control. And so what I can do is think about, well, who could help me with those bits that are a bit more challenging, and also give myself a break, realize that actually there are amazing things that I can do.
Mm,
And then there's some things where I will just switch off. And so,
mm.
just need someone else to do those bits.
I have
Yeah.
to say that's a lesson I think I came to late in life, was the kind of actually just stop trying to do the things that you can't do badly and just let someone else do them. But it's interesting, we were talking about kind of friendships and things before we started. And I think I remember, I didn't go to school a lot as a child, but when I did go, I really struggled. I mean, I was sent home at 4 from a school where they just said she can't sit still, send her home and bring her back in a year. And now I look back and think, well, I was 4 for a start, but actually, yeah, I couldn't sit still. And I'm not great. If I go to a conference, I have to say I'm the person, I must be awful. I'm moving around and I get really bored. Even if I'm really interested in the speaker, I shift around all the time, and I really struggle to sit for any major length of time. I actually get quite physically uncomfortable. But I do notice, yeah, thinking back in my friendships, it I've just always felt like I was slightly awkward and slightly different. And like you said about time, I can remember it made me laugh because I know in your, when I kind of asked, what we want to talk about, and you said about having no mobile phones. So I remember, going out to play. Do you remember going out to play? And,
Yes.
it was like be home at 6 p.m. I was never back on time. The amount of times my mother came, angrily trawling the streets to find me because she was worried, I was like 2 hours late. It must have been
Yeah.
terrifying to have kind of been my parent. And you were saying that you kind of had that experience as well with friendships, about just, yeah, struggling with them.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were a few different things that went on because I lived in so many different places when I was a
Mm,
child, and different countries. So it was always quite difficult for me to maintain a friendship anyway.
mm,
But then when we did stop somewhere, which was Cambridge, what happened was that I just, would make arrangements to go to the cinema with somebody, and
mm,
I'd be have every intention of going. I really
mm,
wanted to go. I really liked that person. I wanted to go to that film, and it would just completely go out of my head. And so, like my best friend, she is still my best friend to this day, and she just developed a love of going to the cinema on her own. So she was brilliant, and she understood that it wasn't me actually not valuing her and valuing our friendship. It was
mm.
literally that my brain would
Yeah.
forget things. Um, so there would have been other instances with people where
Mm,
they weren't as okay with
mm,
that, and
mm,
I probably don't know about half of it, but yeah. So some of these things were a bit difficult, and also in relationships, I tended, and even to this day, to get into relationships with people who are very tidy, to the point of
mm,
probably like OCD, really,
mm,
need everything to be very tidy.
mm,
And of
mm,
course, that shows up even more if you're a bit
mm,
disorganized. Um,
mm,
and actually, with that, the funny thing is that I really like it all tidy. It's unbelievable how quickly it can become
mm,
disorganized
mm,
again. And it's
mm.
like something happens. Not quite sure what it is. And so, yeah, so then it's almost like you end up with this label of being the messy one.
Mm,
And then that is a trigger for me.
mm, mm,
It's been a trigger my whole life. And because I don't want that label.
mm, mm. That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
It's reminding me of there was a post on, I think it was Instagram or something, a while ago, because my daughter has ADHD, and it was somebody dressed in, like, almost like if you just picked up random bits of your jewelry and then kind of funny bit of clothing, and so just really weirdly just in this chaos in a room. And it said, this is what it's like trying to tidy up with ADHD, that you start to look at things and go, oh, actually, I'm going to put that on and I'm
Well,
going to dress this on.
do you
And I
know?
sent it to my daughter and was like, this is you.
Yeah, and this is the funny thing about it, is because I'm only just now realizing this
Mm,
and understanding what happens. It's almost like I'm getting this whole nother vision of my life and what's happened. And now when I'm organizing and clearing things, I've got more of an insight into, oh, what happens to me, And so I don't know. I mean, it does seem to be more helpful because at least I can go, okay, at this point, I'm
Mm,
so distracted by all these things.
mm,
It's really going to take me an awfully long time to
mm,
do this unless someone can
mm.
help and just keep me on track in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm,
it's an interesting thing when you realize things about
mm,
yourself that you've always known. I thought I've always known these things about myself, but perhaps now I'm seeing it through a different lens, which is
mm,
this is how my brain works.
mm,
This is linked to trauma that I experienced as a child. Very, very
yeah.
strong link.
Mm,
And my brain is just like this. So,
mm,
what can I do now to help myself and make the most of the fact that I've got this knowledge now and
mm, mm.
kind of almost give myself a new lease of life?
Yeah. It's kind of like letting go of the guilt,
Yeah.
and the frustration. I remember, finding out. So, I haven't had a diagnosis, but two of my children have it. I'm pretty sure I do. But like you, only worked out actually about, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when I first started this podcast. And I was interviewing a really wonderful, one of lovely people called Michelle Minikin. And she has a book called Deprogramming Girls, which is all looking at girls and girls history and kind of how we're programmed. And she was chatting away about having ADHD and I have this symptom and this symptom. And in my head, I'm struggling to concentrate. So I'm thinking, well, I have that and I have this and I have that. And at the end, we finished the podcast and I said, do you know, I'm Michelle, I think I've got ADHD. And we went through it all and she said, yeah, it does sound like you do. Um, oh, sorry. And yeah, it was really interesting that just like this sudden realization of, oh, like that's a thing. And the funny thing was that both of my children, I think, have been diagnosed by then, but they have ADD, so they don't kind of have the slightly hyperactive bit. And like you, when I'm in that zone, I just power through jobs. But then
Yeah.
when I'm not, I am absolutely not. So I completely power through, and then I'm like, oh, and then there's a crash. And I've learned to balance that more now, so I can kind of almost sense that coming. Or I'm like, no, that's going to take a lot of energy. Definitely have time either before or after doing that thing. So I'm much better at kind of like you, kind of gauging what to do and when and how.
Well, I
But it
think
is
that,
interesting.
yeah, I was
Mm,
exactly the same most of my life. I
mm,
would go full pelt. So I was always very successful. Any job I did, everything I did really well, and then I'd crash. So I'd either get
mm,
really ill or something would
mm,
happen. And it was actually after one of those crashes that kind of led me into going into
mm,
my own well-being in a much
mm.
deeper way. When I was 40, I had a burst appendix and I was
Yeah.
really poorly for
Mm,
up to a year really, all
mm,
in all. I had a
mm.
you know I had a 18-month-old and it was
Wow.
really, really difficult.
Mm,
And coming out of that, I was like, I need to look after myself more.
mm,
I'm not doing enough. I
mm,
can just feel it. And I made a step into yoga. And as
mm,
soon as I went to that first class, I sort of was like, oh gosh, I just feel amazing. I feel so
yeah.
good. And it just kept me going and really helped me actually. The yoga helped me. I
Mm,
think looking back now, I can see, okay, so the ADHD
yeah.
was there and it really helped to balance me
Mm,
and keep that leveling out that you're talking about. So I wasn't just
mm,
all or nothing. I was
mm,
able to be much more balanced, much more even,
mm,
and go on that journey
mm.
with kind of like just more balance in my life.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about yoga. I've just been reading The Body Keeps the Score, which I'm
Yeah.
sure you've probably read. And in there, Bessel van der Kolk says, it's all well and good having talking therapy, but you need the talking therapy, but you also need to work with your body. And he says, actually they had set up in his clinic where they were dealing with PTSD, complex PTSD, really severe trauma, a yoga class, because actually yoga helped the body start to balance. And obviously, we're going to talk about the breath work in a minute, but obviously, just learning to breathe properly and being able to breathe is obviously so important as well. But I was really surprised that, with this kind of scientific backing of actually yoga is so amazing for the body. I'm always, because I'm hypermobile, so I can't do yoga. But when I have kind of done it, little bits of it, it's very, very calming. And I think actually just moving our body through emotion is actually really important for us.
Oh yeah.
And so I can imagine for a ADHD brain like mine as well, it just slows you right down, doesn't it?
It really does. And I mean, his work is incredible. We had to, his book was one of our reading books in my breathwork
Right.
training. So that again opened up a big, like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
all this,
Yeah.
you know. The other book that was really significant for me was The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
That's
Mm.
how I say
I
his name. I don't, people say,
Yeah,
I
I read it a
believe it.
long time ago. Oh, I never know how to pronounce it because I'm a
Yeah.
bit dyslexic.
But but the power of now was another one that was
Mm,
so interesting. Just sort of like shifted again my perspective because I think when you've got ADHD, you have a
mm,
tendency to be in the future. It's like
mm,
because my brain can come up with about a million
mm,
things in 1 minute. You
mm.
know,
Yeah.
it's very easy to be like, oh, these are all the things that I'm going to be doing, and it's like, hey, let's just come back to now. And actually, coming back to now also helped me be more relaxed and be more in my
Mm,
body. And all of that
mm,
stuff is so important. And I'd always exercised a lot, and that had
mm,
always helped me when I was younger.
mm.
And I think that had helped me get in my body.
Yeah.
And, but the yoga was different because obviously you're stretching, you're breathing.
Mm,
The type of yoga I was doing
mm.
was Kundalini, so it's very kind of
Right.
about energy,
Mm,
and it was very like mantras and all of that. So it was quite all consuming, which I
mm.
kind of need in order to
Yeah.
stay present. If you see what I mean,
Yes. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
need,
No, 100% get it.
yeah, I need quite a lot to be going on, and then I'm just
Yeah.
in it, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. That's
so
interesting. Sorry, go on.
no, you can you say.
I was just going to say you're kind of making me laugh, that kind of brain going a mile a minute, because I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning and I thought, oh, I've got an idea to go in my book. And I've learned that that's when the really good ideas hit if I wake in the night, because obviously I'm so busy in the daytime. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep my eye mask on, but I can lift it a little bit, hit memo on my phone. I thought, I know I'll speak into the memo, speak my ideas, then I'll go back to sleep. So I'm there and my brain's pinging off all of these different ideas. And then one idea leads to another idea, another idea, another idea. And in the end, I thought, right, oh, brain dumped it all. I'm going to go back to sleep. So I lifted up the eye mask to hit pause, 53 minutes.
Wow.
I just thought, okay,
Amazing.
maybe I won't bother going back to sleep. But I totally get that. Just the brain just sort of buzzing and buzzing and buzzing and that kind of rush of ideas. But you're right. When, I've come and obviously done the breath work with you, I'm not thinking about anything else while we're doing that. And
No.
when I've done yoga, we're not. And I agree with you. I think that's so important to slow our system down
Yeah. I mean, in
and give it
one
that
way,
breathing space.
yeah. In one way, how brilliant is it that you get
Mm,
those downloads and those insights?
mm,
You know, that's the thing. And I think that for me is the bit that I think is like the superpower because I wouldn't want
yeah.
to be without that. It's so
No.
wonderful. And I'm quite
Mm,
often when I'm in a zone, so if I'm exercising or yoga and breath work, I have all the things come ping, 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 all these insights and
mm,
ideas, and they come when I've
mm,
slowed everything down.
mm, mm.
But I can also then stay in space, in
Yeah.
quietness as well. So yeah, it's amazing, really, isn't
Yeah.
it? But it again, it's getting that balance right because
Mm,
then, okay, if you've got up really early, you've had all of that
yeah.
happen. It's like at some point you need to make sure you're going to
Yeah.
rest and
Yeah.
sleep. I don't know, sleep has never
Yeah.
been, I love
Mm,
sleep, but I could work, really late into the night.
mm, mm,
I have to make myself go to
mm.
bed.
So it's interesting you say that. So if I'm energized, so like at the moment, obviously I'm recording these podcasts and I'm writing a new book. When I'm really into something, I become really hyper focused. And I absolutely, I was in here working till 9 last night, getting something finished, and I have to have a cut off. So I have to go, 9 is the
Mm,
cut off, Mary, go inside. Because otherwise, yeah, I could literally stay up all night. And I think it's only because I've also learned that instead of 51, I sleep is like a hangover. Lack of sleep to me now, it takes me 2-3 days to pick it back up again. And so I've learned from literally going through that process so many times. Do not do that. Go to bed, get up early if you want to, but it is hard, isn't it? Because to almost
mm.
stop that energy flow that you're having in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know?
strong energy. It is a really
Mm,
strong energy, and you
mm,
can get a lot done. And but it's somehow getting the balance, because I was listening to someone the other day on the podcast who was talking about, well, let yourself keep going, because you'll get an awful
mm,
lot done, and maybe the time is then, maybe that is it, and
mm.
catch up later. But I'm a little bit like you as well, that I definitely get sleep hangovers,
Yeah.
and
Mm,
I
yeah.
just I don't like that feeling the
No.
next day if I
No.
feel a bit depleted, because for
Mm,
me as well, and I think I've always had this, if I'm a bit tired, I'm a bit more emotional,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything can seem a little bit more
Mm,
overwhelming than it
mm,
is.
mm,
It probably isn't
mm,
at all, but
mm,
and my brain does, and then there's this, and then there's this, and this is
mm,
terrible, and what
mm.
about this, and how are you going to do
Yeah.
this? And I'm like, oh, and if I've had a
Yeah.
really good night's sleep, I don't
Mm,
have that.
yeah. No. And I agree. I mean, if you read Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, that made me kind of go, oh, I need to go to sleep. It's an amazing book. And so I'm
Really
very aware of my
amazing.
health now at my age as well, not sleeping. But just to move on, because I really want to kind of talk about obviously the breath work that you do. So do you
Yeah.
mind kind of sharing how you got into that in the first place?
So yeah, so going back to the yoga, I was really getting into my yoga, really enjoying it, and then I got to sort of mid 40s, just after my mid 40s, and I went through a divorce.
Mm,
And it was really, really painful for me.
mm,
I hadn't ever imagined that was going to happen,
mm,
and it did. And
mm,
so I was sort of struggling, really, particularly
mm,
struggling with not seeing my children all the time, and
mm,
two of
mm,
them were still quite a bit young. They were young
mm,
ones, and so I was kind of like upping the yoga, but also searching for something else. I was thinking,
mm,
I feel like there must be something else that I can do. And
mm,
so I sort of put that intention out. I had this little post-it in my kitchen, and it said two things. It said, find your dharma, like your purpose, and get a new job. And actually, what
love
happened
it.
was both came. And what happened was I went to Goa on my own, a solo trip, and I was like, I'm going to get out there.
Mm,
My children had gone to Australia with their dad for a month, and I thought, I'm not just going to sit here sad at
mm,
home. What would I do? I've had children for since I was 25. What am I going to do? Right, I'm going to go on an adventure on my own.
mm,
Got to Goa, and it was while I was out in Goa that I met this amazing woman called Nicola Price, and she said to me, "Oh, I breathe people for a living," and I was like, "Breathe people?"
what?
And what's that? And
Mm,
and we ended up actually doing my first breathwork session out at sea on paddle boards with dolphins around and everything. I mean, you
oh
couldn't make it
wow.
up. It was
No.
magical how it
Mm,
all happened. And but the significant thing was that during that breathwork session, everything went. I wasn't
mm,
thinking of anything,
mm,
um, but I got a very clear vision and a
mm,
very clear message, which is you're on your path. You're on your path,
mm,
which is kind of what I needed to hear at that point.
yeah.
I felt incredible. I felt like I'd shed like a whole
Mm,
skin, in that sea.
mm,
And I just came round for that, and I'd never felt like that.
mm,
I felt so
mm,
free, and so I was like, "What on earth happened to me? I need to find out more about this." And so I followed her. She lived in Brighton,
right.
and I followed her and had more sessions, and eventually that led to her saying, "Why
Mm,
don't you train,
mm,
Lisa?" And I was sort of like,
mm.
"Oh." I haven't thought of that, and then I went on the training, and here we are, 7 years later.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got into
That's
it.
that's incredible. And I tend to share with so many people that I come to you, and it definitely, I've had lots of therapy in my life, but the breath work has been, as quite transformative. And I'm just really passionate that everybody does it. So what is it? kind of tell us a bit more about breath work. Like what is the effect on the body of being able to breathe properly, and kind of why is it so important if in leadership? I mean, it's important to everybody, but why do you think it's especially important? Because you work with leaders, don't you? You do kind of one-to-one and groups, and which is quite funny because I'm sure people go, you do breath work in corporate, but you do, don't you? So why is that
Yeah.
important to
Well, it's a funny
leadership as
thing, isn't it?
well?
Because people just think, well, we're all breathing, and of course we are.
Yeah.
We're breathing. If we're alive, we're breathing. But actually, what shows up in our breath is how we're living our
Mm,
lives. So quite
mm,
often, you might be shallow breathing a lot because life's
mm,
stressful, and that literally, on a physical level, means that you're not getting as much energy. So we've just been
mm,
talking about our kind of energy levels going up and down with ADHD.
mm,
So it could be for anybody though. Anybody's
mm,
energy can be really depleted if they're running a business,
mm,
they're getting out there trying to get their message across. So on a physical level, you've got that going on. But on a mental, emotional level, it's
mm.
huge, the breath. And these are ancient practices here, but we're
Yeah.
bringing them into modern day life as well. And we're looking at modern day things that we
Mm,
know, about the mind and body and the connection.
mm,
So if someone is breathing better, they're
mm,
happier, they're living their life more, and they're getting insights. And this is the bit that if you've never had a breathwork session, you might think, well, how could you get that from breathwork? But you
yeah.
get a really incredible insight into where you're at, what's possible
Mm,
for you, things that you could get rid of, let go
mm,
of, blocks, barriers that
mm,
you didn't even know were there. And they
mm,
might come up as emotional ones.
mm,
They may come up as limitations that you put on yourself. You know,
mm,
it's almost like you get a deep dive into the core of who you are,
mm, mm,
and you get down there and you get into it, and then you're in it, and you're breathing, and you've gone somewhere else into that
mm,
place. And when you come back out, everything is a bit different,
mm,
as you know.
mm,
You
mm,
feel different physically, but everything looks a bit different. Um, and then from that, the more sessions that you have,
mm.
obviously, the more you can kind of clear out the closet,
Yeah.
and become more aligned with actually your purpose, what you want to
Mm,
do in your life and
mm,
with your life, and the people you want to
mm,
share it with or not, and all of those things.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that mirrors my experience, and I think for me, I remember when I came to see you, I've done so much therapy, but I hadn't done really anything with the body. And I remember coming, and I remember the intensity of that first session, lots of tears, but it was really being able to let my body release. That's what I remember. It was almost kind of, yeah, I know this stuff in my head, and I've got this, I've sorted my triggers, and I've done all this stuff, but my body was so tense, and so I was going through some stuff at the time, and I just remember coming out thinking, oh, I feel like I've kind of been in a hot bath and had a massage and had a really good therapy session, like all wrapped up into one. And I think for me also the nicest thing was it was almost like this time out of my life. I didn't have to be responsible. I didn't have to be present. I didn't even have to be kind of thinking or doing anything. It was just, as you said, and in that space, your mind clears the clutter, and you suddenly have those thoughts or those visions where you're just like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing, or I didn't know I thought that about that thing, and you're able to process it and let it go. And so for me, it definitely it's like a time out space, and I'm always really careful. I never book anything after it because I want to just enjoy being in that incredibly relaxed space.
Yeah,
But
I
it is
mean,
very tiring.
you're right. The body side of things, because again, going back to what we were talking about before, we've got active brains. Most people
Mm,
have. I mean, we're
mm,
overstimulated, literally,
yeah,
all day, every day, and night, everything. We've got phones.
yeah.
We've got this thing going on with our brains being so sort of charged up all
Mm,
the time, and actually we're forgetting about the rest of our body.
mm,
And the thing I
mm,
hadn't realized most of my life is
mm.
is that actually the body can talk to you, and the
Yes.
body has its own intelligence. I mean, there's a
Mm,
lot coming up now, a lot of research, huge amount that's been done on the
mm,
gut. and gut
Yes.
health,
Mm,
and how,
mm,
the brain in your gut. There is an actual
mm.
brain there,
Yeah.
and that's
Mm,
why we talk about our gut feelings.
mm,
And
mm.
again, the heart, I mean, the heart has just got, I mean, so much going on there.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we sort of cut from the neck down
Yeah.
off for most of us.
Mm, mm,
Once we start to develop that relationship with our body,
mm,
it starts to open up a whole new way of being, I think, that
mm,
actually also helps with this brain in our head, and it
mm,
helps with our emotions. And,
mm,
life's always going to have its really tricky stuff going on. But the breath then can become like your ally, your friend, your support, your
mm,
anchor. You know, anything happens, you can go and do some breath work, whether that is
mm.
left nostril breathing or a big
Yes.
conscious connected breathwork
Mm,
experience like
mm,
you've had a lot of.
mm,
Whatever it is that you choose to do with your
mm,
breath is going to support you, as long
mm,
as you've already started that little journey with the relationship with it. Because a lot of people come to me and they have a fear of the breath, because
yeah.
they've had panic attacks, or they
Mm,
feel quite nervous. It's up in their
yeah.
chest a lot, and it's a horrible
Mm,
feeling. I
mm,
had those in
mm,
my 20s,
mm.
and nobody needs to have a panic attack,
No,
and I
no.
know that now. I know how to. It's
Mm,
very
mm,
simple to
mm,
teach people to get back into
mm,
their diaphragm, so that the breath
mm,
is nice and low, not all up
mm.
here, and stop those in their tracks.
Yeah,
Really important for
yeah.
people to feel empowered, to be able
Mm,
to have that relationship with their breath and know
yeah.
how to look after themselves in those moments of
Mm,
severe stress.
mm, mm. It's interesting. I was thinking because I know when I came to see you, I was very. I think I said to you, I'm shoulder like shallow breathing, and you obviously, over several sessions, I now feel I can stop that process myself. And one of the things I did, so I didn't hyperventilate like most people do, but I did a thing where I kind of almost breathed in and feel like I can't get enough breath. And I used to do that a lot. And I remember going to see the doctor and he said, I'm in sort of my 20s, and he said, "Oh, you're hyperventilating." And I said, "No, no, no. It's like I can't get enough." And he said, "Yeah, it's a form of hyperventilation." And very occasionally now I have to be super, super stressed. I can feel myself do it. And then I think, well, okay, if I was lying on the mattress on Lisa's floor with her there, she would just put her hand on my tummy, she would do that. And so now I can take myself there. And for me, that's a massive resource that I don't start to feel panicky about that, because I'm like, because it just used to annoy me because it would hang around for weeks. Now I'm just like, oh, actually, I'm just going to imagine that Lisa's here. I'm going to go and do the breath work, and it's fine. And also the same when I notice that I've gone back to shallow breathing, I can stop and do some of the techniques, obviously, that I've learned through working with you. Um, and I'm thinking, I read, is it Breath? Was that by James Nestor, I think? And then
Yeah,
Oxygen. I can't remember who Oxygen was by, but this isn't woo-woo. This is scientifically backed. The neuroscience buys into it, the body science buys into it. It's not, again, it's one of those things that's always been around, but there's a huge amount of data of why it's always been around, isn't there?
well, there is, and the thing is, if you think about our respiratory system, it's a
Mm,
system that's automatic, but
mm,
also we can do something about it. So
yeah.
we can consciously change it, and that's
Mm,
that's no coincidence. That's for a
mm,
reason.
mm,
And it's so exciting. I mean, I just love it. I just think, how brilliant is that? We've actually got this way that we can change our state. So we could
mm,
calm ourselves, or we could energize
mm,
ourselves, or we could prepare ourselves for literally anything. And I mean, in terms of leadership, the CEOs that I work with around the world, they turn up and they're ready to do the work on themselves, and they
mm,
turn up and they say things like, I've been really arrogant. How do I get rid of this
mm,
arrogance? Because it's
mm.
affecting people I work with. And it's like, and we're like, okay, let's go, let's breathe on it, let's
Yeah.
see what comes up. And then they realize some things, and they might get in, a flashback to when they were a child and something happened. And
Mm,
that's where that all started. And I actually don't
mm,
need to behave like that anymore.
mm,
It's not
mm,
useful for me. So it can do that sort of thing, but it can
mm,
also prepare you to go and stand on
mm.
that stage and
Yeah.
present the best speech that you've
Mm,
ever done.
mm. Mm.
because it can balance you, it can keep you calm,
Yeah.
but it can also energize and give you the
Yeah.
kind of thing that you need. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such an incredible tool.
Mm. I always get a bit nervous when I go and give talks, and I always now stop and just do some really kind of deep into my stomach breaths and sort of calm my whole system down. And even if I'm in the middle and I find myself starting to speed up a bit, stop. Or if I'm facilitating, I'm a bit nervous, I stop. And it's really interesting because I get a lot of feedback about, oh, you look so relaxed on stage, and you look really casual, and you look like you're loving it. And I'm like, and I probably am 98%, because I've set my breath to calm my system down. So that kind of irrational, oh, am I going to be judged on stage, which so many of us, have. I work with so many people on that, but it's that, there's still a body system which is rightly energetic to go out actually on
Yeah,
stage,
I
but
mean, you
it's
need it,
you controlling it, isn't it?
but
It's
you
you
don't want it
controlling
to be out of control. That's exactly
it.
it. And I think public speaking is apparently up there as the greatest fear that most humans have
It is,
above
yeah.
death. I mean, it's above
Yeah.
death. So,
Yeah.
it's a terrifying thing. I think it probably goes back to
Yeah.
most people have, been in a
Mm,
classroom as a child
mm,
and felt
mm.
some kind of humiliation
Yeah.
or judgment.
Mm,
I mean, it's
mm,
so weird, isn't it? The things we have to deal with as
mm.
humans, but
Yeah.
that then sticks,
Mm,
and most
mm,
people are
mm.
terrified of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and actually, at the end of the day, yeah, like you say, you do need a bit of those nerves, but you just don't want it
Mm,
to tip over.
yeah.
And you want to try and enjoy it. You
Yeah.
want to enjoy the experience,
Yeah.
and that's what the breath can help you with, definitely.
Mm. It's interesting, and I always say to people, that fear of kind of public speaking, it's very tribal. We're meant to live in tribes, and actually, imposter syndrome, all those sort of things, actually they're very tribal. So naturally, to survive, we had to fit into the tribe. So we are a bit concerned about how we're judged, or all that standing up in front of people and all that stuff, because if you got kicked out of your tribe, you were eaten or you starved to death. And
Yeah,
so there is a kind of this equals death. And so I always say to people, remember, when you go out on stage, your very kind of basic brain, your reptilian brain, is basically going, I'm going to be judged, I might die, and it's and calming that system down so you can stay in the kind of more developed brain and say, I'm actually here to do this presentation on, whatever it is, nothing's going to eat me, or kick me out of the tribe.
yeah,
But like you say, it's and I often think exactly what you said, that we have this very basic biological reaction, and then at some point in childhood it's been triggered by something in the classroom. Absolutely, I absolutely think that. But we've talked a bit about the kind of one-to-one work, but you breathe with whole teams, don't you?
yes. I breathe teams. That's always amazing. Yeah, because if you think, I mean, how I see it, when you have a team of people who work together, they're
Mm,
a community. It's a community
mm,
of people, and a lot of the time, they're spending more time together than they are with their own families and friends,
mm,
because people are
mm.
working long hours and all the
Yeah,
rest of it. So actually, you want to get on with those people in the
yeah.
best way possible. Not only because obviously that's better for your working life and your experience of life in general, but
Mm,
also because you're trying to make things happen in whatever job you're in, and you're trying to.
mm, mm,
So it's it's also really good because often in the teams, the CEOs will be part of the breathe.
mm, mm,
So everybody's on the same level. Here they
mm,
are, all human beings
mm,
breathing together. It
mm,
doesn't get
mm.
more bonding than that.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm guiding and
Mm,
taking them on a journey. I use a lot of
mm,
hypnotic
mm,
language, and not to hypnotize people, just to help people
mm,
come more in their
mm,
body. The breath, I'm guiding the breath.
mm.
And so, sometimes the business might be going for a really difficult point. So the
Yeah.
focus might be on how do we stay in our bodies, stay
Mm,
aligned, stay
mm,
present, stay listening to each other,
mm,
hearing each other, not going into panic mode, the
mm.
CEO not starting to get really angry with everybody, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Let's just bring it in, breathe together, come out together, and then they have incredible meetings afterwards,
Mm,
where everybody's
mm.
just able to voice exactly what they
Yeah.
think and be able to influence things in the right way, not be
Mm,
afraid to speak up. I mean,
mm,
that's a massive thing,
mm,
even in meetings, isn't it? Let alone getting on
mm.
stage,
Yeah.
being able
Yeah.
to actually say,
Yeah.
actually, I think this would be better.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm thinking of the state I'm in, whenever I leave yours, and I quite often, most of the time I will not book anything in. I go for a walk, or I actually go and potter around kind of charity shops, just, in my own little world, or sometimes I go to the park, but I always make sure I've got time to kind of almost allow my body to kind of enjoy that state. But it's a very, very reflective state. So I can imagine if you're doing that with a team, it does kind of almost, it allows you to just drop the clutter, doesn't it? And to
Yeah.
actually see what's going on for you. So I can imagine doing that with a team would be extremely powerful. And I know, you came and did it for me and a group of friends once, and that was
Yeah.
just wonderful. Like, we were all talking about it afterwards, and it felt, we really, I mean, we were bonded anyway, but we really felt like we came together afterwards. And I know other people were saying, oh, I really felt like really connected to this person, or this person particularly, or it's a really I mean, it's just a really lovely thing to do, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is, and it's different, and that's the thing, that there'll be some people listening to this and they think I've actually got no idea what they're talking about. So, we're still at this stage with breathwork,
Mm,
particularly, like you said, there's lots of books coming out now, and they're all
mm,
talking about different
mm,
aspects of it,
mm.
you know.
Yes.
And so people can get a bit confused. Should I always breathe through my nose or mouth, or
Yeah.
all these things?
Yeah.
That's okay. But also, we're on the cusp of, like, in some places in the world, breathwork is really well known.
Mm,
California,
mm,
Bali, in London, quite
mm.
a lot now, and in a few other places. But then also, there's still people who've got no idea what it is.
Yeah.
So, but we're on the cusp of it because literally everybody needs help to breathe.
Mm,
However you
mm,
like to think of that, it's
mm,
like, right, we're living with so many pressures
mm.
in all aspects of our lives and globally,
Yeah.
that really being able to stop, take a breath, focus on your breath,
Mm,
recenter is, it's almost like the
mm.
pathway through all of
Yeah.
this, that we can all
Yeah.
walk together. It's the one
Mm,
thing that bonds us all. Everybody's
mm.
breathing who's
Yeah.
alive, and then it's the one thing that bonds us the most strongly with nature,
Mm,
because we can't survive without the trees, and they can't survive without us. And so the burning of the Amazon, and all of these things, they're
mm.
serious things that affect,
Yeah.
us, the planet, everything. So,
Mm,
it's
mm.
it's kind of like, I also like to think of the breath as, it's everything.
I mean, I was, as you were talking, actually, I had an image of a little baby. You know how babies do that, and they kind of
Yeah.
stop, don't they? But that kind of little tummy going up and down. And I was saying actually to a client today, I was just teaching him some of the kind of basic things you've taught me, and I said to him, it's like a baby. Babies come out and they know how to breathe, and their little tummies move up and down. And then as adults, it's our chest going up and down. We just lose that
Yeah.
ability, as you say. We're so overloaded. I mean, our lives have got more and more and more complicated and stressful, and yet our brains haven't changed to adapt to that at all. Our bodies haven't changed to adapt to that at all. And I
Yeah.
think for me, I always think of breathwork like a reset, and I know sometimes, like I know I've got breathwork session booked in soon with you, and I will message you and go, I need resetting, I need
Yeah.
resetting again. And it is, I can almost feel it kind of, and I think I'm quite good at looking after myself, but I can feel this kind of, and then I'm just like, oh,
Oh
I need
yeah.
to
Oh yeah.
let
It
my
builds
body
up.
just reset again.
I'm exactly the
Mm.
same. I mean, I had my breathwork session yesterday, so
Mm. That's why
I
you're so chilled out.
yeah. Well, I just, well, I'll do it till my last breath.
Mm.
I know how I'm going to
Yeah.
breathe my way out of this world as well. I've got no fear of death.
Yeah. Mm.
So because of it, because I'm so connected to
Mm.
my breath, you see,
Yeah.
so I just know
Mm.
that I will be going down that road with the breath.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, it's exactly like you
Mm.
say, it's a reset. It's literally a
Mm.
reset. It gives me clarity and information and joy. So I'll share a little bit of my last session. I went back
Mm.
and I was there with little Lisa, and
Yeah.
really connecting with her in a way where I was totally welcoming her in and
Yeah.
holding her, and because even that might sound strange to some people, if we think about it, it's something like 90% of our thoughts and feelings come from
Mm.
childhood. And I
Mm,
think even most of it is before we're 7.
yeah.
So our operating system day to day is like 7 and
Mm,
below.
mm.
So we've really got to make friends with that part of ourselves as the adult now and go, I get
Mm,
that you're terrified. I get that you don't want me to do this or that, but actually, we're going to be all right to do it. Let's do it together. And there is
yeah.
something, again about connecting with the parts of ourselves
Mm,
that are stuck in that time. For whatever
mm,
reason, I think that it's probably a journey of just coming to accept ourselves
mm, mm,
fully, and the breath really is the number one for that.
mm, mm. I mean, I totally agree with you, and I also do a lot similar work, but from the mindset space. And I think it's you're right. It's very powerful. Every single person that comes, to see me, the main issue, if when we take it back, it will be something that was triggered in childhood. And I think that's where a lot of people get their breathwork patterns. And I can now, I mean, I know I've sent some clients to you. I can now spot it and say, yeah, they're breathing right up in their shoulders, or they're not breathing at all, or they're holding their breath, because that's really common, isn't it?
Yeah,
So to anybody listening, I would just say just do one session, because as you said, it's really hard to explain to people. And
yeah.
I think, as you said, there's so much information out there, and so people are like, oh, I've seen a bit of that and I'm not interested, or I've seen a bit. And I've always said to people, I had somebody recently had chest pain, and it's being very medicalized, and I just sort of said, just go and see Lisa, and the feedback is, oh, mate, it's gone and I feel so much better afterwards. And I think I always just say to people, trust me, just go and have one session. After one session, you can make your own mind up about it, but just spend the money and have one session. And that's what I would say to anyone listening: spend the money and have one session with you, then
Oh, thanks,
see where
Mel.
it
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
you.
Well, I think it's I have a feeling, and it's been reinforced quite a few times, that the breath usually calls people in. There's a point at
Mm,
which someone goes, I've had enough of feeling like this, whether that's
yeah.
physical, like you've just said, the person with the pain in the chest and they can't get a
Mm,
breath and they're going to the doctors and they're saying there's nothing wrong
mm,
with them and all of that stuff going on.
mm,
Or they're saying
mm,
there is something and had
yeah,
medication but it hasn't gone,
yeah,
because we're working holistically with every
yeah.
aspect. It's not like saying don't go and have medical
Mm,
things, not at all.
yes.
But it's what can we do in all
Mm,
aspects, and this is where I think
mm,
breathwork now is the time. I really do,
yeah.
because we need it, and we're bringing ancient old things in with modern times and modern
Mm,
technology and research and all of that,
mm,
and the two combined are so powerful for people.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think, for those people who, like the science is there.
Oh
It
yeah,
is there. It's completely there.
yeah,
So it's not, I think a lot of people used to kind of think of it as, the woo-woo term, but it's absolutely not. The
no,
science is all there.
no, it's very
But
practical
anyway,
in many ways. Yes, so
no, I know. I mean, as I always say with all my guests, I could probably talk to you all day, and we end up having lots of long conversations anyway. But I need to ask you my 3 questions that I ask
oh
every
yes.
guest. So, when you think back to the challenges that you went through, is there a kind of book, film, or piece of music that, really resonated with you at the time that you used to help you through?
Well, I mentioned one of them, which was the Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, because that was quite a
Mm.
significant one for me in terms of realizing that staying in the moment was so important. So I'd say
Yeah.
that's probably a book that was up there.
Mm. If somebody is listening and they're thinking, I kind of like the sound of it, what can I do today? What can they do?
Well, they can take some action.
Mm.
If you've listened to this and you're thinking, right, I'm curious, for whatever reason that might be,
Mm.
just get in touch with me.
Mm.
Or so you can do that online if you don't live near Cambridge. If you live in Cambridge or surrounding area, you can come see me in person. Both are
Mm.
really amazing. They're just
Mm.
different. So
Mm.
joining on Zoom is incredible
Mm.
because most people join from home or somewhere where they're relaxing, and so you're
Yeah.
already in a different state. You haven't got to
Yes.
travel there, you haven't got to travel back.
Mm.
And I guide
Mm.
people all the time online, so you can still have
Mm.
a really deep experience. In person, again, you've got touch
Yeah.
that's happening and
Yeah.
all the other things that go on in the room.
Mm.
So yeah, so what I would say is just get in touch. We can have a chat about where you're at. Always like to do that with people and just find out, what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
But the thing also with breathwork is you don't really need to say too much. If you
Yeah,
would
we don't.
rather just say, well, things aren't great at the moment, we can have a breathe.
Mm,
It's fine.
mm,
I will ask
mm,
a few medical and wellbeing questions just
yeah.
to check and make sure it's all safe and all the rest of it for you.
Mm,
But really, you don't have to talk. And so that's
yeah.
very attractive for a lot of people. It's also
Yeah.
very attractive for a lot of people if they've struggled with meditation and
Mm,
being
mm,
quiet in their own minds.
mm.
Um, because this is a kind of meditation, but it's very different to that. So you're
Yes.
quite active in
Yeah.
it.
I was going to say, I would say that. So I really, really struggle to meditate. I actually just, frankly, I just, I've got other stuff that I want to do. And I love the breath work. So for me, that's really worked. But if there was something, I mean, do you have a sort of quick tip for how to breathe better that you could share? Is there something you could share with us right now that if somebody could just sit here and practice quickly to help them?
Yeah, so what I would say is pop both your hands on your belly, just sort of where your
Okay.
belly button is, both
Hmm.
hands there, and just gently sort of push your hands against your belly button. And then take a big inhale through your nose and breathe in and expand the belly into your hands. And then just let go through your mouth. And then again, breathe in, expand the belly like a balloon into your hands. And let go. And then one more, really expand that belly, even if it's only going a little bit. Really see if you can push it against your hands, open everything up, and then just let go.
Yeah, it just relaxes you instantly, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
That's really lovely. Okay. And my last question is, if you were standing in front of world leaders today, what would you say to them?
Let's have a breathe.
Yeah. I can think of quite a
I
few
mean,
that could do
I
with that.
would love to breathe. Most of them need it, that's for sure.
Yes.
Because of all the things that we've talked about, because it
Mm,
clears the old stuff, the old patterns, the things that might be getting in the way and making you make choices that perhaps aren't
mm,
for the good of all
mm,
people and the
mm.
planet. We want to clear that stuff. We want to have a really
Yeah.
free flowing, clear, positive
Mm,
a mind-body connection so that they can make
mm,
really good decisions,
mm,
and
mm.
stop
Lovely.
wars and work together and have that sense of community across the
Mm,
world. So
mm.
they all need a breathwork session, and I'll put my hand up now, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other breath workers that would like to do the
Yeah,
same. So
I'm
we're
sure.
available. We're available.
I love that. Free advertising to all world leaders here.
We are
Yeah.
available because it is so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, it is. It is. I 100% agree with you. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming and sharing your expertise. And to anybody who wants to get a hold of you, what's your web address?
www.breathingbliss.co.uk.
Lovely. And obviously, we'll put it all into
Okay,
the notes as well, so
thank
that if people
you.
forget, they can come
Yeah.
find you. They can find you on Instagram and LinkedIn as well.
Instagram, breathing lower dash bliss, and LinkedIn, breathing bliss. Yeah, you can find me everywhere. And yeah, I look forward
Lovely.
to meeting some of you. And
Brilliant.
thank you, Mary. It's been lovely chatting.
No, thank you so much. Hi, I'm Mary Williams, as you know, and thank you so much for listening to the Alternative Leader podcast. I search for guests to bring you lessons and learnings that can help move you forward in your life, help you achieve the success that you want to, in whatever way that shows up for you, to help you lead powerfully, whether that's in your own life, as your parenting, your personal, or your professional, and make you the best that you can be. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and review it, and please share it with as many people as you think also want to move forward and gain success in their lives. If you want to find out more about me, go over to my website, which is www.mary-williams.com. That's www.mary, which is MARI-williams.com, and you'll find links to all of my social media profiles there. There's also a Facebook community that you can join, and again, all the links will be on the website too. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and thank you so much for listening.